Dee Iraka, and I am in my own kitchen today, and we are going to be making a beautiful rainbow salsa. I love this kind of salsa because you can kind of make it what you want it, and you can throw anything in that suits your desires. So today we've got a whole variety of colorful vegetables. You know, when people say eat the rainbow, well, this is eat the rainbow. So we have red tomatoes, we've got some red bell peppers, orange bell pepper, we've got a purple onion. We're gonna throw some avocado in because it's some really great healthy fats. We're gonna throw in some corn. I'm gonna show you how to cut that off the cob really easily. And then we can finish it with some cilantro. So I'm gonna make a super quick dressing. I love to use the zest. Zest has all of the oils in it. So if you are using oranges or lemons or limes or even grapefruits, you can go ahead and give it a little zest. So we've got our lime zested. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a roll because I can tell it's kind of hard, and this is a great way to kind of break up the fibers and get a little bit more juice out of it. So if you're trying to save money, that's a great way to make sure that you're getting everything you can out of your ingredients. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in both halves. I'm gonna squeeze it with this citrus squeezer, and I probably have about 3 tablespoons total in there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put in just a few very, very basic spices. So we got black pepper. I think that almost every recipe that I cook has a little bit of pepper in it because I like a little bit of pepper. I'm gonna throw in just a pinch of salt. It's probably about a 1/4 teaspoon. Then I've got a couple things that make my life easy. So garlic powder is one of them. Of course, you can get a garlic clove out and you can smash it and mince it up, but I really like to have the garlic powder. It makes it a lot easier. And then I also like to use cumin. Cumin in a salsa goes a long way because it's very smoky. And then last but not least, I'm just gonna throw in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And I'm just gonna kind of stir that all together. So that's really the base of the sauce that's going to be in here, just to give it a little bit of flavor. And then we're gonna go ahead and cut up all of our vegetables. Onions can be a little challenging, and I like to tell people that if you cut onions often, you'll get the hang of it. So what I like to do is make a little flat edge here, put it right down on the cutting board, and then I run my knife right through it so it's got a lot of stability. I'll put one piece aside. We really only need about 2 or 3 tablespoons of red onion, but I'm gonna show you how I dice my onion. So what I do is, again, make sure I have a flat edge here, and then I will ever so carefully cut in, my knife is parallel to my cutting board, and that way I get these nice little slices. And then I'll flip it to the side, and I'm not cutting all the way to the end, I'm cutting almost to the end. And the other thing that makes this easier is that I have the end piece that's still intact, so it's holding this together. It's kind of my little holder. So I'm gonna cut down there, and then I'm gonna flip it again and run my knife through, and I really only need about that much. So I'm gonna stop, put that right in the bowl. And that lime, the acid will actually help to break down those red onion. In fact, it might even turn a little bit bright purple from that acid. So I'm gonna let that sit in there, and then we're gonna add in some of these other ingredients. I've got little cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes are great because they're super easy, and I find that in the winter time especially, it's really tough to get tomatoes that are really beautiful and that are red and have a little sweet to them. Of course, in the summertime, it's no problem, but in the winter, it's challenging. So I go and get these. These are kind of these little vine tomatoes. They're small, they're bite-sized, and then I'm just cutting them in half just to make them a little smaller. So we've got our tomatoes almost done. And then I've got a couple different colors of bell pepper. And I think for today, I might just throw in the orange and not even do the red, since we already have these beautiful red tomatoes, and I've got plenty of orange bell pepper here. So bell pepper. Bell peppers are also something that once you get the hang of it, you can kind of cut one of these in your sleep. I like to do it this way by cutting the top off then cutting the bottom, sliding down one side, flipping it to its side, and cutting around it so that you get one uniform, beautiful piece. And then you kind of open it up like a book. Now we probably only need about a half of this. So I'm gonna put all these pieces aside, and then I can run my knife through and make a lot of beautiful slices. And then I can flip them over, kind of like what I did with the onion, to make these beautiful pieces of diced bell pepper. So now we've got maybe about 1/3 of a cup of bell pepper. And again, you can make this recipe the way you want it. If you're somebody who really likes bell pepper, you can add more in. You could use some of these, red bell pepper as well. But I think we've got a good amount here. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to cut corn off the cob. So frozen corn will work with this. Canned corn could also work with this recipe. However, I tend to like fresh corn because it has a little bit more texture. Anything that's been frozen or canned is going to be a little bit soft. So this has a lot of texture, and it's super easy to get off the cob. So I literally bought these already they were shucked, ready to go. And then I'm going to take a serrated knife, this thin serrated knife, and I'm just going to cut this down the side. And that way all these pieces, I use this bowl because if I cut this on the cutting board, a lot of these pieces will just start to fly everywhere. And then I'll find corn on my floor for days. So this is a great way to ensure that most of it, if not all of it, comes right down into the bowl. And then I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in there. I love corn, so I'm gonna throw it all in. Again, if you don't love corn, you could leave it out. Corn in this recipe gives it a little sweet. So if you're not using corn and you want to have something a little bit sweet, you could add a dash of honey or maple syrup or something that's sweet so that you have a little bit of a sweet flavor in this. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and also cut up this avocado. Avocados are, again, something that once you learn how to cut them, you don't really have to think about it. So I usually kind of stand it up and find a place where I can cut right down to the pit, and then I'll flip it to its side, and then I gently just kind of roll it around so that it gets cut all the way around. And then you want to open it by putting one hand this way and one hand this way, and it should pop right open. And then there are several ways to get this pit out. This is my way that I usually do it, is just kind of get a little bit of that on my knife and then carefully just turn it. So then I'm gonna wanna dice this. So dicing this allows it to be real small and get really incorporated into the salsa. One thing that I discourage is for people to hold it like this and score it, because if you were to cut through that skin, you might cut your hand. So I like to hold it kind of like this with a little bit of gap so that then I can run my knife through there. And if it were to be, my knife were to be so sharp that it would go through, it's not gonna cut me, it's just gonna kind of go through the air. I flip it over and I do this so that I can get some diced pieces. And then I take my spoon that I've used this whole time and go right around. And now I've gotten just about every piece of that avocado. The last thing I'm going to go ahead and put in this salsa is a little bit of cilantro. If you're not a cilantro person, you can omit it. This gives a pop of green, but it also gives a lot of really great flavor. And I'm a huge cilantro fan, so I'm going to go ahead and put it into my salsa. But again, when you make this at home, the beauty is that you can make this the way you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and run my knife through. You notice I kind of cut it in half and then kind of stacked it on top. That's a really great way to cut herbs, is to kind of stack them. And then when you get them to this point, you can run your knife through and kind of go back and forth, kind of pushing it all in the middle and basically chopping it up until it gets to the size that you want it. And there you go. So now we've got some beautiful cilantro and we can add that into the dish. So we'll add this in and give that a stir. Now you've got this beautiful green, you've got the creamy avocado, you've got the sweet corn, the pungent onion, and the sweet, colorful peppers and tomatoes. And you have yourself a beautiful rainbow slaw.